Hello, viewers. Ride 1 actually was a nice surprise. It had a lot of really decent elements in it from Milestone. There's a few things missing that stopped it from being a great game, and now they've come back with this new package, a huge package, looking at Ride 2. So I've been looking forward to a hands-on. So I'm joined again now by of course, we've got Martin.
Hello.
We've got Kevin.
Hi, guys.
And we've got Ed.
Hello, everyone.
Okay, guys, so I was joined by Ed, of course, the other day. We did a few hours going through Ride 2, getting an idea on the scale of the game. I mean, it's all right having numbers of 200 bikes and loads of courses, but it depends how they're modelled, it depends how it plays, it depends how it feels. And moving from Motor Racer 4 to Ride 2, you can immediately see the amount of extra development that's gone into Ride 2. You know, it's a solid, decent-looking game with lots of content. I would say first impressions getting on a bike straight away was, if you like Ride 1, you're going to like Ride 2. Immediately it felt really good. The bike felt quite natural with and without assists. I would urge people to turn some assists off, because the game really comes to life when you turn those assists off. The first impressions for me were very positive. Ed, you're not really a biking gamer as such, but you played it a bit the other day. What were your first impressions on Ride 2?
Yeah, well, initially it was a little bit difficult for me to pick up straight away because, as you say, I'm not familiar with the characteristics of a bike and how I should be treating it. So I think there's probably going to be some footage of me flailing across the track every now and then. So obviously there's a bit of that going on, but as I started to understand it a bit better and get a feel for it, I could actually understand how this is actually really well done, and they've really paid attention to the sort of things that you should be understanding properly as far as like the simulation of the bike's characteristics. And like when you were explaining to me how you should sort of lead into corners, and the bike should you should really like lean over as you turn into a corner nice and early. And once you start getting understanding that, then it starts working really well, and you can really get into a nice flow of things.
Yeah, it's interesting you say turning early, because the bikes seem to turn so slowly, don't they? So you really have to be ahead of the turn when you start turning in.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about. You've really got to be looking ahead and reading the track as you're approaching it, and it's quite difficult to master initially. But once I did start getting a hang of that, it was quite good.
Yeah, I mean, that is a reason why that on biking games, and I've spoken to Milestone about it, was you've got two ways a bike works. If you turn into a corner and the bike reacted instantly, you'd end up with the bike just swinging from side to side, a bit like Super Night Riders. It's a very quick turning. In real life, a biker doesn't just turn into a corner. He has to move his backside, prepare to brake, and then lean in. It's a whole process that goes on before he gets to the corner. A lot of biking is preempting where you're actually going before you get there. Braking, preparing your body, braking, leaning in, gently on the power. Well, I say gently, they're pretty hardcore on the power, these guys, and hope that the traction control saves your life. That's basically how it works on a lot of these bikes these days. So in that sense, the idea is you have to look ahead, and you're sort of you're not looking at your bike, you're looking at a sort of diagonal line with the body of your rider. So you're leaning your biker's body into the corner, throwing him at the corner basically. And once you do that, you start to hook up the apexes. I can tell you right now that hooking up apexes in Ride 2 is one of the most satisfying things. It's a simple thing, it's hooking up an apex, but there's something so sweet about getting corners just right every time and getting into that flow of things. And I can tell you right now that getting into that flow will require a lot of people, a lot of laps to get right, a lot of laps to get the understanding. And it took me quite a few, and I've played a lot of bike games, but as soon as I got into it, as soon as I got some understanding of it, it all clicked. And I had one fantastic race, unfortunately hasn't recorded, and Ed will have witnessed this. Fantastic, coming up through the field, 2 laps to go, 3rd place, battling with these 2 riders who were battling with each other. It was a battle right up to the finish line, really competitive, AI working really well, and it just showed, how good this game can be. So in terms of the bike and the bike handling, you know, it feels good. It feels like it works well. I will just say, just away from that though, I've noticed some people complaining whether some courses look like the real courses. I couldn't say because I don't know some of these courses very well. But the ones that I do know, I think they're rather reasonable representations of those courses. So I think certainly visually, it's not the most mind-blowing representations ever, but either way, it's nice to have them in a game, see them being developed. The bikes, however, do seem to be very well modelled. Nice detail on the bikes, nice detail on the riders. You know, Milestone are always good with that when it comes to models, and they have really nice bikes. But either way, the environments could do with a little bit more polish, it has to be said. But it does take time getting used to riding the bike, getting it into those corners and hooking up those apexes. And the bikes vary in difficulty massively. You know, some of them have lots of power and you've got to be really gentle on the throttle. Some of them, you know, you can get to grips with pretty quickly.
I like the look of this sort of really narrow country lane. That looks quite exhilarating. I'm not quite sure where it is. It looks like an English track.
That's old stuff.
Do you know where that was set?
Yeah, it's the old stuff, GP. And I got to tell you, wow, the feeling of speed down there when you're flat out. These guys are crazy.
They've captured that quite well.
They have.
Yeah, they seem to have captured that quite well. That was something you talked earlier about the flow and you know, how satisfying it is to nail that apex. That's something that Drive Club bikes did very well as well, I think. Obviously, it's not a simulation, so it's not as realistic as this, but you've still got that core satisfaction.
Yeah,
and that's something I think that's been quite missing in bike games. I mean, yes, it's realistic, but is it fun? So I guess that goes back to like how slowly the bikes sometimes turn in.
Yeah, I mean, I have. Sorry, Martin.
They've still overdone it a bit, or bikes turn in. Do you think they've still overdone it a little bit? A lot of people did complain about that.
I think it's a bit. I think it's way better than MotoGP.
Yeah,
way better. I think it varies from bike to bike. Some bikes you turn in much earlier than other bikes. I think it's marginally too slow. I'd still like a little bit more responsive-ness on the controls, getting the bikes into that from the
game.
And I think that's it's not a lot, but it's just a bit more turning would have really made a difference to getting the bike into some of these corners. In other words,
what's improved since Drive 1.
Yeah, you're not always able to put the bike exactly where you want it. Ride 1 was quite similar, but again, it depended on the bike. I did play Ride 1 quite a bit, and I got really good at it eventually. But it took a lot of practice to, you know, I crashed an awful lot of times before I worked out how to. And in fact, I think you see Ed crashing. We're not going to show this, surely. A little bit of Ed. A lot of it rewinding and crashing constantly, but there's this pesky lamppost I'm watching as I'm talking to you guys. He keeps smacking into it, but it is quite painful, and there are some amazing crashes. It has to be said, but yeah, it does. This bike was horrible. It was like the most powerful bike, and it even has like downforce.
Ninja, wasn't it?
Yeah, Kawasaki Ninja. It's got downforce on it. You know when a bike has downforce on it,
you're in for trouble.
It had little winglets on the side. It was mental.
Yeah, it really is a crazy bike. Yeah, don't ride this at home, kids.
But what you guys were saying about how slow it turns in, I think the important thing for people to know as well. To start with, we had it on like the easiest settings with all the assists and things. And I think when we changed it to semi-pro, which was, you know, you still got a bit of traction control going on there, but it definitely started responding a lot better once we put it into that mode. And you could also, on the way out of a corner, it allowed you to get a little bit of wheel spin as you're coming out of the corner, and it just helped to really understand how much throttle you should be using. The PS4 triggers aren't quite as precise as something like an Xbox One controller maybe, but you could get used to it, and it was working quite well.
Yeah, I mean, again, the triggers don't work. I mean, I've said this lots of times as well. The Xbox controller just feels so much better for me for this type of game than the PlayStation controller, you know. But I will say this, a lot of these bikes do use traction control in real life. It's worth noting that. And they're designed for traction control. If the riders turned off traction control, they'd be falling off their bikes every 2 seconds.
That would be pretty suicidal.
Yeah, and I did actually turn off all assists to see what it was like. And it was drivable, but not competitive, because you're gently getting on the power, they're all going flat on the power, and the computer will always be slightly better than you are in terms of monitoring that traction. But either way, you can reduce what they don't call it TCS, they call it anti-wheelie. So you can reduce that. It's like they don't have racing line. What have they got? Ideal trajectory is what they've got instead of racing line. I've never understood that. I actually mentioned it in a video in 2011 on SBK 2011. I couldn't find racing line. Eventually I came across racing trajectory or something. And it was quite simple. But there you have it. Yes, some absolutely horrific crashes taking place on that bike thread. But either way, it was the bike, to be fair on him, mate. It was really difficult to ride, and if you do progress and you become ninja, then there's always that bike to test you out. So, yeah, impressions of the game, first impressions were certainly, for me, very good. I really enjoyed playing some of these different bikes. I would say, along with Ed mentioning turning off some of the assists, go with semi-pro. It was a much more fulfilling game when you turn off some of the assists. You had way more feeling of the bike. You could do more with it. And I think also, when you're not don't use joint brakes, because the thing is, I dab a bit of rear brake sometimes if I'm just trying to get into a corner. You can just balance your bike a bit better with separate brakes. So it takes a bit of getting used to. You'll need to put some time into it, no doubt. Also, nice replays as well. The replays are very nice. But and obviously photo mode, great. But I'd say if there's one thing I'd like to see, What is it I'd like to see, Martin?
Frame rate.
Yes, a bit of frame rate. Okay, it's a 30 frames per second game, and one can only wonder. As I've done a little simulation here, you guys can look at of what it could look like. This is not the game running at 60 frames. I've just used some editing to try and get it to 60 frames to show what it would look like. But either way, if the game ran at 60 frames, it would look fantastic. And I look at it sometimes and think, 30 frames is okay, but with the visuals that we have, love to see that 60 frames per second. And who knows, maybe with PS Pro coming, for those who own a PS4 Pro, which will be none of us, then maybe it'll be brilliant. Maybe on Xbox Scorpio we'll see a 60 frames version of a game one day like this. But either way, visually it's quite nice. I mean, we're looking at this Ulster race, and you can see for miles at times. The road goes off miles in the distance. Goodness, I'm rambling, Kevin.
Yeah, like you say, the visuals are impressive. Improved sounds as well from the bikes. Not brilliant sounds, but as long as we've seen improvement, of course, we have to give credit. The helmet cam looks a bit odd because you see the bike sort of moving.
It has a helmet cam at least.
Yeah, it's like the helmet cam is always stuck onto the screen, and then the bike sort of swings left and right. It does look a little bit odd.
It's not a true helmet cam, is it?
No, it's not. No.
Well, I don't know. When we had our hands on with it, it's a damn sight better than having a camera that's sort of rotating a bit with the bike. It started to feel quite natural. It's sort of where you expect the bike to be in relation to the driver's head, which and also with the sort of motions that the bike is doing when it's going over bumps and things like that. You can see like the handlebars.
Yeah, I'm watching it. It is moving slightly.
It looks quite good, and it works well once you actually got it in your hands and you're seeing it and it's reacting to your inputs.
Yeah, I guess
builds a connection between you and the game.
If it had a little bit of movement, sort of like slight tilt to the like what you have in the rider's neck, I guess that might compensate, might make it look a little bit more natural.
I think there's a slight tilt going on there. It's not as bad as MXGP2 anyway. I think it is, from what I can see, moving slightly, but yeah, maybe it's not pronounced enough. I don't know.
I will say, actually, to back up what Ed was saying there, it was surprisingly playable. In fact, for me, one of the most playable first-person bike games ever. Because the biker, don't forget, he is seeing your head is the right way up when you're doing a lot of this stuff. Your eyes and your neck and everything adjust for bumps and vibration and everything else. Just the words you mentioned, sound. They have made quite a bit of improvement to sounds here and there. There are different spot effects. It's much coarser sound. One of the things that was missing was, and it's something I pointed out in Gran Turismo, is wind. Now, a lot of the bikers hearing is, loud wind sounds when you're going really fast, and it adds a lot to the actual feeling of speed and the feeling of being there. zero wind sound in there, and it's it's just something that adds to the environmental feeling of going fast, because that affects the bike audio as well. And of course you end up with a very pure bike audio. So the bike audio it's better, but it's still too pure. It's still not
muffled.
It's not the muffled, it's the fact that distortion is what I'm after. Bikes sound these bikes are so loud, like a lot of racing cars, you hear a distorted sound. It'd be too loud for the speakers to pick up. And I think you need a bit more distortion. It's too pure, it's too clean. And I think sometimes when you have wind blowing bike with a bit of distortion, it just gives you a bit more something. So there's that to the audio I think could be improved. And back to the on cockpit, I really like what they've done with the cockpit. I found it much more playable. You're leaning where the rider's head is. In terms of it being perfect, it's not perfect. There's still things they can do. I did find that the helmet is better than MXGP. I did find that the helmet, like you were saying, I don't think I've used the helmet, because I found that with the other cockpit cam just before helmet view, you lost a lot of your view at the top of the screen for no reason. And I thought, I'm losing a lot of view there. So it's sort of a negative way of playing. I think you lose too much view from the top of the screen, especially if you're going up a hill or something. So I think that's something which the helmet cam is a bit stuck on, and it's not dynamic enough. It needed to be just a bit more faded, a bit closer to the camera maybe, to make it right. But either way, I think it was pretty decent actually, in terms of as far as helmet cams go. You can get used to it. You can play pretty perfectly with it as well. I did actually play a race later in the day that's not recorded, sadly, and I was pretty much riding fine with the helmet cam. And I never ride with cockpit helmet cams on bikes, so it certainly had something there.
It's definitely better. And also something, I'm going to be a little bit speculative, but while Alan was getting me a panini, there was a bit of the menu that I was looking through just to see what else was in the game. And there's this biker customization menu, and you could adjust almost everything about your biker's position when you're going through a corner. And you could actually adjust the amount of rotation that was in his head and his shoulders and his elbows and everything. So I'm wondering, I didn't test it while we were there, I should have done now that I think of it. Just to see if you could adjust that rotation, if it would actually affect the cockpit cam maybe. If it does, then that would be really good. Might be something you guys could play with when you were saying about your cockpit cam maybe a bit too level.
I'll be surprised if it does translate into the cockpit view, but it's nice to have the option there, just so if you're sort of using the third person viewpoint, you'll see those little adjustments there, so that's good to see.
Yeah, it's a good adjustment, and that was a much needed panini, I'll point out, and a packet of prawn cocktail crisps as well. Do not forget those. But I'll say that it's got loads and loads of options. I mean, you may or may not see in the video the list of tracks there, epic list of tracks, really good selection. Some of which we weren't able to get footage of, sadly. Epic list of bikes. It really is sort of the Gran Turismo of bike games in terms of the content. It really is all in there. I'd say at the moment, if there's something I would like to see, it's, what do I want to see, Martin?
Frame rate.
Exactly, 60 frames per second. I'd love to have seen a bit of 60 frames, but alas, it is a 30 frames per second game. It looks nice enough for what it is. I'm sure on the PC you'll be able to pump it up and see what it's like, all singing, all dancing. But yeah, I'm really impressed with it so far. I mean, Ed, what would you say is your standout moment playing the game?
I'd say the most exciting part to me was the feeling of the bike coming out of a corner and the adjustments that you could make, the very small adjustments that you could make to your throttle inputs. I thought they're very satisfying. I thought they really nailed that, and I think the mechanics of the game underlying are very good physics-wise, and I think it's something that people really appreciate. That as well, also the customization options. They've got a fair few brands that you can use to kit out your rider in different overalls and things like that. and I managed to get the rider in, like, his helmet, his overalls, his boots, his gloves, and the bike all with the same colours, which was quite cool. I thought that was good to achieve that. And it's something that a lot of games don't pay enough attention to, I think.
Did you play the game from the very start?
I think it was sort of a big beginning sort of element. We did a race, and then it gave me this Honda, which was actually very slow, and then we just spent the rest of the time getting into quick races and having a look at some of the bikes that you can get as loaned bikes.
I'm just wondering, because every Milestone game pretty much starts the same, where you have to create your avatar and do all that, and I'm a bit bored to death with that, so I just wondered.
Yeah, you know, that it wasn't like that. No, actually, no, it was actually. I did actually. No, it was. It was there. I did actually. I highlighted that to Ed. I was like, look, here they go again, wanting me to set up a rider. I just want to play the game. When I want to play career, then I can set up my rider. But first, I just want to play.
Yeah, why does it force that on you every time?
It's a bad design decision.
It takes so long.
It does. Design decision nonsense. I don't know why they do it. And I mention it every time. No, I even play it in front of them, and I try. Oh, it's your game. Look, it wants me to set up a rider. No, I'm not interested.
Don't care. Don't care.
Don't care what he looks like. Don't care about his name. Exactly. I just want to race and come back to it.
Yeah, what number would you like a rider to have?
Exactly.
I don't care.
No, none of that
Get
stuff.
on with it.
It's the same with all of their games. They have that. So this is no different. It does have that sort of setup.
So this is about the fourth or fifth game they've released this year, and they all start the same way.
Yeah, it's pretty tried and tested sort of formula. tried, tested and failed formula, but it's still in there. So yeah, I guess there are a lot of people that like it, but I just think that it's fine when you're doing a career mode. But when you're just doing some single races or quick races,
is there a voiceover man back as well? Is there a voiceover man again?
Do you know, I wouldn't say I heard any voiceovers when we were playing, but then again, don't forget we were still playing a version that wasn't complete, so there's still work to be done there. And to be fair,
I remember the one
it could have been too quiet.
And to be fair, it's the same with the bike sound. I mean, I haven't actually listened back to all the recordings with the pure bike audio on all the bikes yet. So again, that could vary bike to bike. You know, we were playing it in a noisy room, but yeah, good stuff there. So I think to round up now, then I think that about covers everything in Ride 2. I don't know if you guys have any more questions. No. We've seen everything there is to see on it. So yeah, Ride 2. Right, I would say I went into Ride 2 with perhaps feeling a bit negative after not enjoying MotoGP this year. I didn't enjoy MotoGP. I found some of the bikes to be understeering all over the place. It felt a bit dated to me. I've come on to Ride 2, and I found that the physics are much better, much more like Ride 1, much more fun to play, and with a fantastic selection of bikes and circuits. Looks pretty good. You know, it's not going to blow you away visually. I wish it ran at a smoother frame rate, but I always will. That's me. I'll keep on wishing. And other than that, that's it really. Thanks for your input there, guys. That's it for now, viewers. We'll have more ride content coming on the channel, of course, next few weeks. More previews, updates, reviews, all of that stuff. And don't forget to check out the Moto Racer 4 coverage as well for that biking action. But that's it from me for now, and from the rest of the team. And there'll be more from us very soon.